We are in a polyamorous relationship together as a throuple, and what that actually means is that the three of us are in a relationship with each other. A lot of people look at polyamory as an experimentation, which is not actually true at all.
A friend of mine told me about Ashish and Shweta, this very happily married couple that's been, open about their polyamory for a few years by this point. That's when I first met Ashish and Shweta, and I saw them giggling at each other, and I was like, mine. I will chance maru. The second there's a window open, I will maru my chance.
My parents were like, are you divorcing Shweta? What is going on? Is your relationship in trouble, etc.? Unconditional support from both friends and family.
We sell pleasure products. Most of our stuff is made here in India. The first manufacturers of Indian-made massagers. Now is a good time to take this a step ahead and provide people with the tools to explore their sexuality.
I'm Ashish.
I'm Tanisha.
And I'm Shweta.
And we run a sex tech company together. And we're also a throuple. And you're going to watch our story on Jist. We are in a polyamorous relationship together as a throuple, and what that actually means is that the three of us are in a relationship with each other, right? And we live together, we build a life together, we look at all of us as a family together, and that's what our structure and our family actually looks like. Polyamory is a relationship structure and setup where you can have multiple partners, you can fall in love with multiple people, right? And have different relationships based on how you define it with those particular partners. A lot of people look at polyamory as an experimentation, which is not actually true at all. It's not a failure, it's not an experimentation. And I think that's where the misrepresentation of polyamory being experimentation comes across, because sometimes it works for people and sometimes it doesn't. In our case, it worked pretty well for the three of us.
And polyamory started for us a few years ago. Ashish and I had been married for about a year. This was, I think, 8 odd years ago, if I'm not wrong. And we were one day sitting and having a conversation about what it means to cheat in a relationship. And we realized that something like emotional intimacy for one person may be cheating, while for somebody else it may not amount to cheating because it lacks the element of physical intimacy. And we started talking more about what it means to cheat, and through that conversation over a period of few days, we sort of came to a realization that as long as the affection between us, the love between us remain unchanged in the way we expressed it, in the way we felt it, it didn't threaten us that our partner, being each other at that time, wanted to explore something similar with someone else.
So polyamory for me started from this place of, oh, maybe, partners will be more likely to keep me in their life if they have the option of seeing other people. For me, polyamory came from that very strong mental health perspective, and since then it's grown into something that, allows long distance relationships to exist in my life, because we have other people to lean on, and somehow that makes the love and the communication so much stronger, because now we have all these other experiences outside of each other and still know that there is so much joy in picking up the phone and, telling each other about that life.
So how did Ashish and I meet? That's actually a cute story in my head, at least. This was 10 years ago, and I had just gotten on Tinder. And I think so had Ashish, but I had been on Tinder for about 3 weeks and I'd been on 2 really horrible dates. The third swipe that I did was actually Ashish. And the thing is that Ashish did not live close to where I was staying, and of course my radius was kind of small. But as it happened, he was landing from Australia back to Bombay, and I think he turned his phone on, and that's when he swiped. So had he not been at the airport at that time, we would have probably missed each other, and we had no common friends. And so my 3rd week on Tinder, and I think 3rd day for Ashish. Yeah, and then we spoke for a week, and yeah, I think thereon it started pretty quick. And then we actually got engaged 3 months later, which was ridiculous. Yeah, that was insanely quick. Yeah. Also, I think everyone apart from me knew that we were going to get married, because Ashish went around telling everyone that he's going to marry me. weirdo that he is. So yeah, that's how Ashish and I met. We met Tani because Tani decided to gate crash our party.
Moved back from Bombay after studying abroad for a very brief period as well. And this was around the time where I just started thinking about polyamory for myself, but wasn't too sure of what it would look like to actually start that process and start actively seeking relationships with that mindset. And so I wanted to start off with, you know, people who may have had those thoughts before, maybe even had life experience before, and maybe just talk to them and get a sense of what real world experiences are, because TV experiences about polyamory are so not true. And a friend of mine told me about Ashish and Shweta, this very happily married couple that's been, you know, open about their polyamory for a few years by this point. And I was like, great, few years is a decent enough life experience period for me to sort of chat them up and pick their brains and maybe even get a slightly stronger understanding of who I am. There was a party involved, and my friend was invited to it, and I went as their +1, and that's when I first met Ashish and Shweta, and I saw them giggling at each other, and I was like, mine.
At that point from the party, like again, you know, I met Tanisha and we started talking about geeky things like Percy Jackson and other things, and I finally found someone who I could speak to about this in a room full of people who thought I was crazy about talking about young adult fiction. Tanisha was the only one who paid attention, and from there we started following each other on social media, and
yeah, I immediately followed the both of them on social media the next morning after the party.
Charming.
And I was like, I will chance maru the second there's a window open, I will maru my chance. And yeah, it felt like a safe place, like to just sort of figure them out as well. And it felt like even if a relationship or basic dating didn't come out from it, I'd still made friends that I want to keep around and like go to movies with, and you know, just generally catch up and be very, very stupid with. So that connection was pretty instant, and then we took very little time and started dating.
Yeah. First was a lot of concern, right? And rightly so. My parents and friends were like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? My parents were like, are you divorcing Shweta? What is going on? Is your relationship in trouble? And I was just like, no, it has nothing to do with that. And during the course of time, when people saw that we were actually really happy and we were thriving and we were getting better mental health wise and doing well in our career and other aspects as well, and they started meeting our partners, and it was like, oh shit, okay, this is something that you're happy with. And I got unconditional support from both friends and family and co-workers, because, you know, I'm going to be honest, when you're a cis male, you know, upper caste and all of that jazz, it's very easy to say that, hey, I'm dating two cis passing women, right? Or, you know, multiple other people. It becomes like, oh my god, you are so lucky.
Even for me, there was initial concern. It was a different kind of concern because I didn't already have a partner at the time when I met these two. So in my case, it was more of a, why is this hot couple so interested in you? Is this a scam? Do they want your organs? That took some time to work with. But no, I think it was also, you know, they got a chance to watch my mental health stabilize. They watched my physical health get better. They watched me sort of recalibrate what I want to do for work and how I perceive myself. And I think when they saw that confidence growing and they saw that Ashish and Shweta had consistently been involved in that, they were like, okay, I guess, you know, this environment is helping you. You're more confident now in who you are and what you want to be. So whether we understand polyamory or not is irrelevant at this point, because whatever you're doing is consensual and is working for you. That sort of solidified things for them, that okay, Tanisha is not just, you know, being a third to someone's marriage because something is wrong in that marriage, but all three of them
I hate it when people ask that question.
Yeah, I got that question a few times as well. But yeah, people saw all three of us together and saw that as individuals we're happy and our interconnectedness is fine. And then they sort of settled down and said, okay, your family is your family.
So yes, we do have a company together. It's called Sangya, and we sell pleasure products. Most of our stuff is made here in India, and we are also the first manufacturers of Indian-made massagers. And that started as a sex ed page actually back in 2020 during the pandemic. And the idea at that time Tanisha wanted to start the page, and the idea at that time was to start talking about the topic in general, in part education, but not in a preachy way that says, oh, this is your anatomy and this is what you're supposed to do and this is how you're supposed to take care of your organs, but rather talk about the nuances even within the sex education that people don't generally talk about. A lot of it was experience-based even in those conversations, and very quickly we started gaining a lot of following on Instagram, and I think a year and a couple of months into it is when we decided that now is a good time to take this a step ahead and provide people with the tools to explore their sexuality. And that's when we started selling pleasure products. And quite early on is when we started manufacturing here in India as well, because we understood that it was a great chance to make sure that the quality is in our control, that we can offer the kind of warranty to people on our products that we would wish to offer, which is a 1-year warranty. And that gets increasingly hard to do when you're importing products. And also to be able to change products basis the feedback that you constantly receive from your customers.
The process of manufacturing in India was a really cool one, simply because when we imported these products into India, we realized that these aren't made for Indian bodies, and we needed to redesign and figure out the process of how these products can be made for the Indian body. For example, our strap-on. When we brought strap-ons into India, we realized that shit, this doesn't fit most of the bodies in India, and we experimented. We designed. Me and Tanisha sat down and actually designed to figure out how to size these products and how they could fit and work for different people, and we sent it to beta testers and had a whole process around it to get the product that we have to get today, which is our #1 product on our website at the moment, next to our loop, of course.
I think that was the agenda with both aspects of Sangya in terms of the sex ed content that we were making and as well as the products that we were putting out there. It felt like so much of pleasure awareness and pleasure education was just not really happening in a way that understood the culture here or understood the kind of shame and stigmas that people naturally have to work with because of the communities or neighborhoods they grow up in and the conditions they grow up in India. So I think a lot of those factors started playing in about not just what it's like to be sexually active or sexually curious as an adult, but how do you safely navigate sex, pleasure, curiosity and autonomy as an Indian adult.
Biggest milestone that Sangya has achieved at this moment is the Sangya 1. It is India's first locally manufactured intimate massager, and that's a huge thing where every single brand out there is importing from China. We manufacture to actually make in India. When I talk about make in India, the PCB, the wiring, the design, the molding of the medical grade silicone, everything has been done here by us. So I think that's one of the biggest achievements we could have done in the past year, and I think the biggest achievement anybody in this industry can have done.
The legality where Sangya is concerned is, I mean, we faced more issues with respect to the taboo around the industry and the topic of sexual wellness more than the legality, and going through any hurdles where that is concerned. Where selling and purchasing of pleasure products is concerned, it's actually a misinterpretation of law that gets quoted a lot. What people keep quoting is how the obscenity law applies, and ironically, there is no definition of what obscene is under any of the Indian laws. And all that it says is that obscene materials are not allowed. And even the provision being referred to, which is now in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and previously in IPC, talks more about books and pamphlets and art and representation of those things, and not about pleasure products. It doesn't even mention it anywhere. And what's happening is that it's constantly getting misinterpreted by the customs when you order it and get it imported. And now there is this constant belief that it is absolutely illegal when it's not. There is nothing that says so. When we started, we had a massive issue getting a payment gateway on board. We had a massive issue with banking and creating an account, and all of that has changed substantially in the last 2 years as the industry has grown. And now with institutional funding having taken place in the industry a couple of times, things are easing out more and more, even in terms of how the conversations are taking place. People are opening up more. So you do see a lot more people working in this space and the industry developing as a whole, in terms of educators, in terms of other institutions offering support, not just funding, but banks offering support. So it's a very rapid change that's taking place.
What we want to do is, you see the the products on our website as being a lot of made in India and a few more complicated products that are still made in China. What we want to do is get that technology made in India and to really expand our catalog into a complete made in India catalog, so that we can make India the hub for manufacturing, rather than the companies and brands over here being dependent on importing and other regulations.
Yeah, and I think the goal is also to expand beyond adult sex education that just exists on digital platforms. We want to get more and more nuanced with the kind of content and awareness we're creating. We want to get more specific to the kind of identity you may have or the kind of life experience you may have. So the idea is to keep getting more and more people on board who can better tell stories of different identities or different relationship styles and different communities across the country, so that people will have a chance to not just see broad Indian adult sex ed, but also be able to hear these stories and essays in their own regional language. They'll be able to, hear perspectives from people who live like 3 buildings down the street, and so it feels more personal because they know what this person is talking about. The idea is to just keep building on that content and make it more and more personal, so that when you have opportunities to talk about yourself in a new relationship or an existing long-term one, or even are looking for the language you need to go to a medical specialist and explain what your life experiences are or what you're feeling and what you're going through, you have that kind of information, you have that vocabulary, and you have people out there who've been telling your story with you, and you know that you're not alone in the process.
The advice I'd give people who are looking to get into polyamory is, one, understand why you want to do it. Do not look at it as a way to save a relationship, right? Do not look at it as a way to fix anything in your life. Look at it as a way to experience more, because you have the capacity for more and to love more, right? Don't look at it as a fixer-upper.
And most definitely don't try to get someone who feels that they're inherently monogamous, especially if it's a partner, to change their mind, because I don't think that works. What it does is pushes them into a corner and makes them choose between giving up on an existing relationship or choosing polyamory, and that is really just going to be a bedrock of resentment, a whole lot of resentment. So if they're not monogamous and you feel that you are, then maybe there's an inherent disagreement on a fundamental question of what the structure of the relationships should be, and that's the bit that needs to be addressed, not forcing yourself into a mold that you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah, it's not about one relationship structure automatically being better than the other for everyone by default. It's so that you figure out what works for you, and you very deliberately and intentionally connect with people or pursue relationships with people who can support that and be part of that in their own ways and be involved in your life. But to say that you can't change for them but you expect them to change for you is extremely unfair. It's not like one is more evolved than the other. It's just relationships.
And that's the gist. See you in the next one.